Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Well, we've had some interesting talks here during the break, and we want to talk about, gun safety, so we'll get to that. But let's get to, using a gun for a defensive purpose. It's a pretty good defensive weapon to have.
It is. There's a couple things. One is the concealed weapons permit process. There are rules in the state of California that require anybody that applies to attend a firearms training class. To pass that class, the value there is not only do you understand your weapon and how it functions, but also you understand the rules and the laws of when it's appropriate to use deadly force. And it's not all the time. People misunderstand that. If somebody breaks into your house and is running out the door with your television set, you are not legally authorized to use deadly force to prevent the taking of property. If they are threatening you personally, if they're coming at you, you feel like you're in danger of personal death or critical bodily harm, then you're legally entitled to use deadly force to protect yourself.
Let me ask you a question now. Out of some of the cases that have been in the news, we know now that some states, I guess, have like something called stand your ground laws. Is California a stand your ground law? And what does that mean?
Some of the ones that are stand your ground laws mean that you're not required to retreat from that situation. I think effectively in California you're not required to. There's not a specific stand your ground law. But again, it goes back to when you can use that weapon.
Okay.
And in some states, if somebody's breaking into your house, you can go ahead and use deadly force. Not necessarily the case here in California. It has to be a specific threat that you can articulate as to why you felt in fear of your life.
Okay, I'm curious. That goes with you officers as well. I'm just asking, suppose you're confronting somebody that was just a robbery or whatever, and they came out and you saw them have a gun, but they were running away. Can you yell stop and fire at them?
You actually, as a law enforcement officer, have the authority to use deadly force on a fleeing felon that you believe has committed a violent act and may cause future violence.
Okay. So
you do have the authority as a law enforcement officer to use deadly force in that instance.
So you would make that decision.
Yeah, it's a tough decision to make.
But as a citizen, like you said, if somebody's leaving your property, there's no longer any reason to be defending yourself.
Exactly, and you see this all the time. Not all the time, but the cases where people are prosecuted for self-defense as they're claiming for their house and they're chasing people down the road because they think they burglarized the house. They had one in Sacramento. I believe the guy used a machete on someone who he saw across the street that he thought burglarized his house, chased him down and killed him. He's being charged now with that homicide. There are specific rules and regulations.
And those are things that you learn in a CCNR class.
Concealed weapon permit classes, absolutely. When you can use deadly force and when you can't, circumstances, and safety issues. I mean, you need to know what the impact is of that weapon. For example, if you're in a house and somebody comes in, you need to know what's behind that person that you're going to be shooting at. If your child's bedroom is right behind that individual, that weapon, in all cases, almost all cases, is going to penetrate that wall if you miss. You're shooting around then into your child's bedroom. You need to understand those kind of things, and you can only get that through proper training and experience.
Right. And then, of course, like you say, you don't want to do damage while you're defending something. At the same time, though, in those kind of situations, you might not be as rational as you are. So you want to practice that? The people practice, or what is it they do? What is it the sheriff recommends to do that to keep your cool?
I think you need to be very familiar with your firearm. I think you need to know how it functions. I think you need to know how to be able to utilize it under low light conditions.
Okay.
Some of that is above and beyond what you're going to get in a concealed weapons permit class. But there are courses out there available that people will teach you on tactics and how you go about defending yourself in those situations. Proper use of concealment, things you can get behind to protect yourself if you have time. Those kind of things, the more knowledge, the better. The more familiarity with the weapon, the safer you're going to be, and understanding that the responsibility that you have to make sure that weapon's secure and that innocents can't get hold of it and cause harm.
Okay, and that might just, if I can parley on that a little bit, a reason why some people that have handguns or rifles or whatever buy ammunition more than it would seem like maybe you don't need that much, but to practice and to stay proficient and to stay to where you're not afraid, but you need to to expand a lot of rounds, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing like actually firing a weapon and being familiar and competent with that. I know people that sport shoot, for example, with rifles, and they may go through 1,000 rounds in a day doing their target shooting.
Okay.
So how do you restrict the amount of, you're a law-abiding citizen, you're out there practicing with your firearm, how do you restrict that person, or why should you restrict that person from having ammunition that allows them to do that?
Okay. Now, you carry a firearm. I think you might be armed right now.
Yes.
And how many rounds does use your weapon there carry?
The one I'm carrying for duty is 15 rounds.
Okay.
In a magazine. In California, you're restricted to 10 rounds as a civilian.
Okay.
And again, as we talked about earlier, the change of magazines in a weapon in a reload situation.
I guess where I was coming from is like, there was a time when if we had talked to a policeman, he probably had a 38 special, 6 rounds.
Right.
And I guess, as time goes by, as technology goes up, you want to have about as many rounds as you need.
Well, what happens is the bad guys get a hold of more sophisticated weapons with more capacity as well. They don't tend to be restricted by the laws that the state of California passes with regards to magazine size and capacity or those kind of things. So we are, as law enforcement, we can regularly be outgunned by the bad guys.
Right.
And so you want to have all the facilities available to you, as much weaponry as you can reasonably carry with you, and reloads and those kind of things that you can take appropriate action.
I heard of a policeman say that you don't know how many rounds you needed until after the action's over.
That's true. That's true. And it's better to have more than less.
Okay. So let's get on. We have some time. Some of the things that President Obama came out with, I think almost everybody could agree with. And I believe one of those, although, I guess where it would come in or maybe not, would be where does the money come from? But say a resource officer at school. A lot of people might not know what that is, but I believe that's what we call the police officer that was assigned to the high school. So we used to have one of those in the sheriff's department. Do we still have a? Let
me comment on that because I think it's important. When this thing first occurred, and there was a lot of buzz about what we should do, I reached out to our California State Sheriff's Association legislative unit, and I said, would you please get a hold of Senators Boxner and Feinstein? My suggestion for funding is to fund school resource officers for the various schools in the state of California. Amador County lost the school resource officers. The funding was realigned down to Southern California. And the value in school resource officers is manyfold. One is it's an armed, trained presence on the campus. 2, it provides an opportunity for students to get to know police officers in a friendly environment, a trusting environment. It develops relationships where high school students, grammar school students will feel more comfortable in talking to that officer that they see every day about issues that are going on, maybe kids that are acting strange, maybe kids that are making threats. That officer is also there to help train the school, deal with the teachers and how they deal with those kind of issues, is there for violent altercations that occur on campus. And then the teachers are also there and can use him as a sounding board for perhaps some outward signs of problems by kids in their classroom. So there's a lot of value in that, and those went away here. And I do think that that's a valuable deterrent too. If somebody's going to pull up to a school, and even if they're mentally deranged, has an intent on committing harm, an armed school resource officer, trained professional on that campus can be a deterrent, and at worst case scenario can greatly reduce the amount of carnage that can occur by somebody coming on campus with a firearm. Okay,
some of the things that came out was to possibly have teachers armed, volunteer teachers armed. Do you have any thoughts towards that?
Yeah, I do. I'm not a big fan of doing that, and I'll tell you why. First of all, that responsibility or the authority to do so rests with the superintendent of schools, not the local law enforcement. I don't think people understand that. Secondarily, well-intentioned teachers, people that are proficient with firearms, and I'm sure we have them in this community. The problem comes into how much training do you have? What's your mindset going into this? As opposed to a police officer that's required to train on a regular basis, become proficient at a variety of things, tactics and all those kind of things, is trained to look at other issues such as those background issues.
Right.
are there students behind this individual? How do we best address this situation? So I'm a little apprehensive about arming teachers.
Are you
although,
still a little possibly open-minded if you would think about it in the sense of if that was the last resort?
Well, you know, I think that's going to be up to each, again, to the school districts, because they have that authority
Obviously,
to
this would
grant
come
that.
up. Right.
And the various chiefs of police and myself in this community that have responsibility for schools in our areas.
Okay.
I think it's a tenuous situation at best.
Okay. And Alan is saying to me, I think we have 1 minute left. I'm going to give you the minute. What are your plans to do to get involved in this issue?
Well, a couple things. One, I'm the secretary of the California State Sheriff's Association.
Okay.
I've been involved in drafting the response from our association to the proposals. I'm involved in drafting that language as we speak now. I am in the process of drafting correspondence to our senators, congressmen, and local representatives regarding my position on these issues. I wanted to do some thorough research behind statistical data to back my position, and that's why I'm doing it at this point. It will be coming out shortly. But there's a couple things that we're doing right. Background checks on individuals. Those need to continue. In my opinion, they need to be done nationally, so we can make sure that the right people get the guns and the bad people don't. We need to make sure that if we identify people that should not have guns, we have a program to go out and get those guns away from them. State of California does have one in the Department of Justice. It's called an Armed and Prohibited program. They monitor gun sales. They match those up with people who have warrants or have prohibited by mental illness or by violent offense in their background, and they go out and get those weapons back. We need to get the guns out of the hands of the bad guys. We need to leave the good guys alone to be able to protect themselves. And that's kind of my philosophy on the issue.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Tom.
Okay, Sheriff. And thank you for watching TSPN. And thanks again for watching. There's more of TSPN coming up right after this.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.